We're just practicing. All right. So again, let me reiterate. It's very important that everyone pays attention to what I'm doing up here. It's not as important that you follow along. All right, because if you do that, you're going to miss something. It's better that you just not do anything, watch what I do, and then you can play with it a little bit. But watch closely what I'm doing up here. Otherwise, I have people asking me questions, and the reason why they don't know the answer is because they weren't paying attention to me. They were on their computer trying to do something else. All right, that defeats the whole purpose of me doing this. And again, I'm recording these, and each day I'll put them up. I haven't gotten yesterday's up yet, but I'm going to do that today. The program I'm using kept having trouble rendering the video, but I think I finally got it working. So starting this afternoon, this evening, I'm going to start putting these up, and you can go back and rewatch them, replay them. You can get annoyed by my voice as many times as you want to. All right. It's a big treat for you, I know. Okay. So apparently we did get through the quick selection and magic wand tools. We know the difference between those, right? Quick review. Magic wand is when you want to click on something that's all the same color. All right, so let's say, for example, let me bring up my layers tab. There we go. Make sure you've got layers open, folks. All right, so quick review from yesterday. Make sure, number one, that you are duplicating your background layer. And we're going to just shut off this background layer because you always want to have your background layer saved completely untouched just in case you mess up. That way you've got a backup copy of it. Then you duplicate that background copy, and that's what you'll be working from. Your background copy is only there for one reason, and that is to make selections from. So, for example, if you are wanting to fill in your background with color, because when you're doing this, you should always start from background to foreground, right? So your first step would always be to fill in your background with a flat color or a gradient or a photo or something. But that's why we have this layer. So if you use the magic wand like I just did and hold down the shift key, see how you can click and select multiple faces. And because this is a flat color, and because it is enclosed, each shape is enclosed in a border, a bold like black border, it's easy to just click on it and it'll select the whole thing. If we have time, yes. Okay. You go to duplicate layer. So see in your layers menu here, there's this little menu on the right-hand side, upper right-hand corner. It's like 3 lines or 4 lines. Click on that. You'll see something called duplicate layer. That will make a copy of whatever layer you currently have selected. All right. And now once you have that duplicate made, you can actually take the eye and just turn off your original background layer. And now it's there safe. It's still part of the image. And it'll be there for safekeeping in case you mess this up. Now here's the part that always gets people hung up. And I mentioned this yesterday. I'll review it again because it's that important. This background copy is only there for making selections. When you want to actually fill or do something else, you want to make a new layer first and then do it on that. So down here, this button, right next to the trash can, lower right-hand corner of the screen, create a new layer. Watch what happens to my layer stack when I do this. Create a new layer. There it is. Layer 9. Now, I go to my background copy, make my selections. I've already done that. Now, before I do a fill, I'm going to go back to layer 9 because I don't want my fills to be on my background layer. Because I'm doing that right now, literally. Just, yeah, pay attention, and I will answer your question. Your background copy is locked, yes. Your background, well, that shouldn't be. You should be able to duplicate it, even if it's locked. The background layer is always locked. That's how every image and every file in Photoshop starts off. Okay. Now I can select a color. It's unfortunately cut off here at the bottom, but you see that little sliver of yellow? That's your foreground background color. If you double click on that, it brings up your color picker. You can select any color you want. I'll do like a bluish purple. Then I just go edit, fill. Make sure foreground color is selected. Now, all those shapes, all those selections have been filled with that color. But keep in mind, again, I did it on the new layer. I didn't do it on the background layer. You want to always keep those separate. Okay? Well, don't worry about it. Just watch what I do. Okay? You'll have time to play with this later. All right. And so that's the magic wand tool. And then remember yesterday, did I show you the thing where we brought the Batman image in? Yeah. I'll do it again. Yeah, that was the clone stamp. We'll get to that. All right. So let me open up the Batman image. Here we go. Remember, we use this as an example. All right, because Batman is in front of a plain, flat, colored background, I can use the magic wand to isolate him. There's two ways you can do this. You can either select the white space first, like so, hold down Shift, and click all the white space, then go to Select Inverse, and that'll flip it so that it goes from selecting the background to selecting him. Just do Control C to copy, and then Control V on the template. And there he is. The white space has already been eliminated. Now, the other way to do it, which is just as valid, is to simply get the Move tool right here and just drag the whole thing over like so. But see now, see the difference? He's still got the white background on there. So what we need to do now is let's zoom in a little closer. Now we just need to get the wand tool and delete it on the image itself. And just hit the delete button on the keyboard. Then Control D to deselect. So two different ways of doing the same thing. All right, but that's the magic wand. That only works, again, when you've got nice, clean, flat color to select. All right, if I try to use the magic wand on a different thing, it's not going to be so easy. So let's say we have a situation like this, where, okay, I want to have Robin on my box now, but the problem is he's on a background. And I don't know, I could get the magic wand and start clicking, but you see the problem? You got all these little uneven shapes and edges, and You know, I could try to hold down shift and keep clicking, but that's going to take a long time and it's not very efficient. So this is where the quick selection comes in. All right. Everybody should be watching me and not getting distracted. The quick selection makes a selection gradually, and it's based on the proximity of your cursor. And it's always set to additive mode by default. If you look in the middle of the cursor, you see that little plus sign? That means that anytime you click, it is adding to the selection. But it's doing it gradually. To some degree, it works on color-based, stuff, kind of like the magic wand. But see, if I just keep clicking and holding it down, it's kind of going shape by shape. All right. So this would be a lot harder to do with the magic wand. So the idea is you just keep clicking until you get everything you need. Now there will come a time when, like, say down in here, it's going to select things you don't want it to. And that's when you can hold down the Alt key and watch what happens to the cursor. It goes from plus to minus. That means it's now in subtractive mode. So I can go in and take away from certain parts of the selection. So it takes a little patience, but before long, you should have most of what you want selected. Lily, don't stress out. Just pay attention. Don't worry about that. Right. Well, just watch me. I keep saying, stop what you're doing and just watch me. Don't worry about that. You'll have a chance to work on it. Okay. So now I've gotten most of what I want. The nice thing also, and this is another reminder from yesterday, a little review. Remember, you can combine selection tools. So let's say I've got a little part here that I'm not quite getting, like the edge of his neck isn't quite smooth enough. I can switch from quick select to the polygonal lasso. Hold down shift, see the little plus that shows up? Shift means you're adding to the selection. Oh, no, I don't want sticky keys. Sorry, did that too many times. Hold down shift and just continue. I can bleed right into this other selection like this. You just got to find where you started. See that? I have now added to the selection. If you can't find where you started from, hold down the Alt key and it should close it for you. All right, so that's a good thing about this. Now, the only other thing that we need to do now is we need to clean up our edges because we've got other edges that are kind of uneven and chunky. So we go to select. Now on my computer, it's select refine edge. But I am using an older version of Photoshop, and I just learned this morning. Somebody pointed out to me. On your computers, it's going to be select and then select and mask. And you'll see what's happened here. It has isolated the figure from the background. So it's giving me a little preview of what the selection is going to look like once I paste it. And it looks pretty good, but you can see there's some edges here on the arm and other stuff that it could be a little smoother. So here's what you do. You go down to smooth and watch what happens to the edges here when I do this. See how much cleaner that edge is now? And we'll bump up the contrast. And we will bump up shift edge, which grows or shrinks the selection by several pixels, depending on which way you move the slider. You see how now it's growing so that you get a little bit of the black on there as the outline? And you can bring the feather out just a bit like that. That looks better. All right, so as you can see, I have cleaned this up a fair amount. Okay, now I hit OK. Now I can copy this, Control C, go back to my box, go Control V, and there he is. And he looks pretty decent. Now I do have some uneven parts down here. And again, this is where I can use my other selection tools like the marquee tool. Let me zoom in closer on this so you can see it. You see, I want to clean up these little bits down here. I can use, any selection tool I want. I can do the marquee and then hit delete. I can do the polygonal lasso. Select that whole area. If I can't find the exact thing, I can use the Alt key, hit delete, and then finally I will select this. Now I could use the eraser tool or something, but I'm going to get much cleaner lines if I just use selections. And there we go. So that's the difference between quick selection and magic wand. Yes, the magic wand is easier and quicker, but it's not going to always be appropriate. Even though this was more steps, this way was actually quicker to do it using quick selection. If I had done the magic wand, I would have had to keep clicking a million times, holding down shift, and it would have been aggravating. All right, so we're clear on that. And then now from there, I can take this, I can move it, I can go edit, transform, scale, and make him bigger, make him smaller, move him around. Because his feet are cut off, I'm probably going to want to put him either on the bottom of the box or maybe have some other graphic element in front of his legs, So there you go. All right. The next tool is the crop tool on the toolbar. Remember, we're going down the list here. Crop tool is basically it works very similar to the marquee tool where you click and drag to make a selection, except now if I hit enter at this point, it's going to actually crop the image to that size, and you don't want that. Sometimes people get the crop tool thinking it's the marquee tool, and they crop their image and they freak out because it wasn't what they were expecting. If that happens, don't click a lot of other buttons and waste your undos. Just stop, take a breath, and just hit Control Z and undo it, and you'll go back to where you were. All right, but that's all the crop tool does. That's all it's good for. So you won't have much use for it. The eyedropper tool. This samples colors, and it's handy. So let's say you are doing a box and you have something a certain color in one of your images, and you don't know exactly how to match it. Like you can't find a swatch that matches it or whatever. Or you can't click on the color picker down here and find it. Then you simply get the eyedropper tool. Again, you can barely see this because the projector cuts it off, but if you look down here in the lower left hand corner, that little color box, watch what it does when I click and hold the left mouse button. You see how the color's changing in the wheel and on the little swatch down there? It's sampling directly over whichever color my cursor is over. All right, so blue, green, red, yellow, dark yellow, right? So that's a very handy thing. Now, if you have your color picker open, you'll notice there's all these little numbers and letters, RGB, CMYK, lab colors, all right? These are numerical values associated with certain colors. Let's say you're a graphic designer or you're a professional graphic designer and you have a client tell you, I want this magazine cover to be, dark blue. And you're like, well, which dark blue? There's like a million variations of dark blue. Which one are you talking about? Well, by using these values, CMYK or RGB or whatever, you can actually give him and say, I want R35, G62, B145. And if he punches those in, he will get this exact color and there won't be any room for misinterpretation. Girls, you are still not following my very simple directions, which is to pay attention to what I'm saying. I think it's great that you want to go on ahead and try to do this, but you're missing stuff and you're not going to know how to do it. So please pay attention. All right, so that's, and CMYK is more for like print type stuff. RGB is more for like web design, digital art kind of thing. All right. Lab and CMYK are kind of the same thing. So they're kind of on the same side. So that's the color picker. The healing brush, don't worry about it. We don't really need it. You can ignore that one. The brush and pencil tools. All right. The brush tool is basically for painting and it has a very soft, you see how soft the edges are? It almost looks like an airbrush. Right? That's the brush tool. And if you go up here and click on this, you can select the shape of the brush. You can make it narrower or wider. You can change the hardness and the size. You can also change the shape of the brush. You can do something that's very splotchy. Remember, you can change the brush size also by using the bracket keys. See, so you can do like effects like this. You can also make your own brush, which is kind of cool, and do your own things with it. All right, so that is a really quick example of the brush tool. The other thing you can do is change the opacity on the brush. See where it says 100% opacity up here? And then you can get more subtle effects. Right? Then you can change the color to something brighter. Right? This is going very slow. Come on, catch up with me. All right. Let me just select that and delete it. Now, why am I able to delete that and not delete everything else? Because what did I do? I created a new layer. That's right. Before I started painting. All right, now the pencil tool is, again, works the same, except you have a more harsh edge. You see that? There's not that blurry, fuzzy, anti-aliased edge to it. It's a lot crisper. The pencil tool. It's bundled with the paintbrush. Remember, anytime you see a button, and they pretty much are almost all this way, with a little arrow in the corner, that means you can click and hold, and there's a pull-out menu. So brush and pencil are the two main ones you can use. You don't need to worry about these other two. Okay. Now the clone stamp. This is a fun one. All right, clone stamp allows you to select any part of an image and then replicate it anywhere else in that image. All right, that's how I did this right here. Let me go back and revert to the original. take a second. Because again, my computer is running really slow. Okay, let's say I want to like put Robin's R symbol on the other side of his chest or do other things to this image. With the clone stamp, it looks just like a regular brush. However, if I hold down the Alt key, see how the cursor changes from a circle to like a little crosshair? Okay. This means that it's ready to sample from wherever you tell it. So hover your cursor over wherever you want to sample from, in this case, the R. Just left click one time and let go. Now watch what happens. You see how now inside the cursor, I have the R symbol there. That means that once I start painting, wherever I decide to start painting, it's going to be sampling from this area. And when I start sampling, if you look over here, you'll see a little X mark showing that it's sampling. All right, so let's say I want to put it over on this side instead. Go over here and just start painting. And there you go. Although I'm not really happy with some of that, so I'm going to undo it and make my brush a little smaller. There we go. Now I can cover up this side. So now instead of sampling from the R, I'm going to resample. I'm going to hit Alt again and sample from the red. And now I'm going to use that red to cover up the old one. And it's just sampling from wherever I clicked Alt. And now up here, I've got this little sliver of his cape that I'm wanting to get rid of. So I'm going to use my bracket keys. Remember, the bracket keys are next to the P key. And I'm going to make the brush a little smaller. And I'm just going to go in and clean that up a little bit. And this isn't the highest res image. It's a little chunky, but it was the best I could find. All right, and you can do other things with it. Like, let's say I want to add another skylight in the ceiling. All right, I'll hold down Alt and sample from this shape and come up here and start painting from up there. And then I can go in and clean that up. This is a good tool to use, like if, let's say you're doing like an underwater scene, like you've got a Finding Nemo box or something, and you have like a couple of bubbles and you want to add more bubbles, you can sample bubbles from one part of the image and then clone them to other places so that you know, it saves you from having to cut and paste a lot of stuff. They also use this tool a lot in like fashion photography, like when they want to airbrush out, you know, beauty marks on a model's face or pimples or whatever. They get the clone stamp and they kind of blend those out. Or, you know, if you want to be really extreme, I could actually just clone Robin's head and give him another head. So you get how it works. You get the gist. So it takes a little practice to get the hang of it, but it's fun. It's a fun tool. Okay. Moving on. The next tool is the eraser tool. And that does exactly what you think it does. It's just a way to erase something off of a layer. Take it to 100% and it will just instantly, oops, I'm not on the right layer. Hold up. Incidentally, helpful little tip if you're on a layer, if you have a lot of layers open over here and you don't know where you want to find out what layer a particular thing is on, just select the move tool and right click on it and it gives you a listing of all the layers that are underneath where you just clicked, and then just go to the first one, layer 12, and that's usually the one it is. All right, so the eraser tool, you simply select it, and when it's on full opacity, it'll just erase the whole thing. But, and it works just a lot like a brush. You can be in brush mode or pencil mode or block mode. So here's pencil mode. There's no blurriness to it. The nice thing though is if you put it in brush mode and then you take the opacity down a lot to like maybe 20% or 15%, you can just kind of gently click and erase and kind of get like a soft fade to some things and get some nice effects that way. And that way you can kind of push things back a little bit, have other text or other elements on top of it, and it's just kind of a neat little blending option. All right, so that's all the eraser tool does. The gradient tool will blend. It's sort of like doing a fill, except it's blending between two or more colors. All right, so if I go way back down here to my template layer, where my template is, let me zoom out, and I'm going to select, get the magic wand again, and select this tool here, this side here, and get the gradient tool. Now it's going to be based on what your foreground and background colors are, which are now yellow and red. So if I get the gradient tool and I drag it like up to down, it's going to fill this in. Whoops, I didn't do that right because I didn't follow my own advice and put it on a different layer. If I drag up to down, it's going to go foreground and background. If I drag down to up, it will go the other way. If I do it diagonally, it will fill it diagonally. So you see how that works? Like, so it follows the direction that you drag it in. And up here in the options, you can make it go foreground to background, or you can make it go foreground to transparent. There are other options, but generally you won't need more than these first two. Just make sure you have the colors you want ahead of time, and always make sure that you are putting this on a different layer. All right? Whenever you put a gradient on the background layer, on the template layer, that makes it hard because watch what happens. If I go back and try to select a face, let's say I want to change it again, I can't do it. You see how it won't select the whole thing. You know, if I hold down Shift, it might, but again, that's not a good way to do it. So whenever possible, put it on a different layer. All right, I think that's going to do it for today. So tomorrow we will continue. We'll do the blurred, smudge, dodge and burn. We'll do the text tool tomorrow. So we're trucking along. Does anyone have any questions? No? Okay. So tonight your homework is to just not only practice some of this stuff, watch the videos and practice, but also everyone should be thinking about what they're going to do for their theme, right? You don't have to make a decision yet. Just keep thinking about it. Do some sketching in your sketchbook. Think about a theme that's going to give you good ideas for activities and toys and stuff like that.